Hello and welcome to Green Pass Gaming Sunday Podcast. I, as ever, am your host Flap, and we are joined by a fantastic panel tonight. And let's start off with my co-host, as always, Puxley. How the devil are you, sir?
Hello. Yes, I'm doing very well, thank you. Always enjoy doing these shows. Again, news has unfortunately been a bit on the dry side as of late, but we've got a few topics lined up. I'm really looking forward to delving into these.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, for anyone listening, kind of here's the rub. We're all waiting for some bombshell news to land from any quarter that we will, that we can get it from the gaming world. And obviously, consoles have launched. The platform holders are busy, probably prepping information for the rest of this year and getting games ready and getting information ready and trying to continue the hype. But at the moment, we're in a little bit of what I would probably call a news lull. So the sort of plan for today's show really is we're just going to do a bit of a synopsis of gaming news that's happened sort of during the week and perhaps cover some topics that not many other shows have covered and go from there. So I'm not sure if there's 2 hours worth in this show with the topics we've got, but let's find out. And as always, chat, please get involved because you guys really make the show and you throw us curveballs that we don't always think of. And we had a great time last week sort of reminiscing over some of the Sega games that could potentially come to the Xbox platform if Microsoft were to purchase Sega. But let's not go down that particular rabbit hole. I've only just worked my way back out from last week. So without further ado, let's carry on with the panel. Regular to the show, as always, Luke Steele, welcome. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, it's has been a bit slow generally, I think, the last few weeks. Certainly some good stuff to talk about, but it's in that kind of weird period where there's stuff coming up, games included, but we're not quite there yet. But no, I'm really, really glad to be here.
To be honest, I mean, we even had sort of the ups and downs, before the consoles had launched. There was a couple of months and, a good 6 to 7 weeks where nothing was happening much and we was all getting excited for the new consoles. So, it's not unheard of, but welcome to the show for the very first time. And it's been far too long, but Pong Soul, finally, you're not going to be in the chat tonight. You're actually on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate the invite. I've been watching you guys for a long time, obviously, and love what you guys do here. And you built an incredible community yourselves here. So to be able to travel across the pond without traveling is absolutely amazing, right? Technology still blows me away that we can do this. It's one thing to do panels that are within the country, but to simply do a panel across the ocean is just simply fantastic to me. So great to be here. Awesome to get into these topics. Super excited. So I can't wait. Let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, they're not huge show-stomping topics, but it's going to be quite nice to cover some of these. And I'm really intrigued to know your thoughts, particularly you, Soul, as well, because, like I say, new to the show, you're always a very active member in the chat. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your take on some of these topics.
I appreciate that. Hey, what's the weather like over there for you guys?
Well, funny enough, I was going to say that we've just been down. I live down in the southeast of England, and today was the first day that we'd actually been hit with some snow. Most of the other countries already been hit with snow, but so we've got our first dose today. Whereabouts are you, Pong? Have you had
well,
snow?
I'm in Minnesota. We're in the Midwest, right. So I was going to tell you we're in the deep freeze. So I did a little converting for you guys here. So today it is just the air itself is negative 21 Celsius.
Wow.
And then
holy heck.
And with the wind chill today, it is negative 34 Celsius.
Wow.
So, yeah. So we're used to it. We've been lucky the past couple winters haven't gotten this cold, but we finally got our deep freeze coming from our neighbors to the north there in Canada. They were gracious enough to supply this to us. So we're staying indoors and keeping warm. So
we've got -5 on Thursday. So Pucks, we better not say much about that. That's positively boiling compared then.
Wow. I was a bit worried about me being exposed to -2, but that just sounds unreal.
That's shorts weather for us here. So.
We get to see videos of people sort of throwing a boiling pan of water in the air and it's sort of instantly. Is it that kind of thing?
Yes.
Wow.
And it does actually work. I've done
Yeah.
it plenty of times in my life because again,
Fantastic.
in Minnesota we get that Canadian weather when the
Yeah.
Alberta Clippers come down, so we're used to it. This is a couple of winters ago we had actually minus in Fahrenheit it was minus 60 with wind chill. So that would be
Wow. That's
so
Arctic weather. That is
Yes.
Arctic weather.
yes, it is. So
Fantastic. Well, you know what? What better way to enjoy gaming? Because if there's not much point going outside, then
correct.
just stay inside and game. So that's pretty
That's
cool.
right.
Let's just do a very quick round of what we've been up to this week. Pucks, what have you been playing this week?
Yeah, I've been playing a number of things actually. I finally kind of almost fully completed Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Did all the order stuff, pretty much most of the world events and that stuff. I've been playing a lot of the Medium. I'm really enjoying that.
You're not completed it yet?
No, I haven't yet because I think, like a number of other people that I see on Twitter, I'm kind of jumping between different games at the moment. I'm kind of in that weird limbo period. I've jumped back into Hollow Knight on the Xbox, actually. I've just thought I'd give it a go again on the Xbox after not having played it on the Switch for a while. I'm really enjoying that. What else have I played? I played some of the Games of Gold, Resident Evil 1 I've tried a bit of. I've not yet played the Indiana Jones, but I've got it installed ready to go.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty most of what I can remember so far.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Yeah, no, to be honest, I've had exactly the same. Luke, what's been on your menu this week for gaming?
Yeah, I think like everyone, jumping around a bit. So I finished the Medium last week.
Okay, because we did the Medium last week, so I'm interested to hear your take. First off, did you play it on Series X or PC?
I played it on Series X.
Okay, and what's your take?
I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't. I thought it looked interesting before it came out, and being a huge kind of Silent Hill fan, it kind of hit that level. But I was a bit apprehensive because I've played Bloober's other games, all of their other games actually, and I've never finished them. I've never found them particularly great, but I actually really loved the Medium. It's the first Bloober game I've finished, and I'm now looking forward to what they're doing next, actually, because I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a really nice looking game as well. Surprisingly, there's some character model issues and some animation stuff, but actually it's quite an impressive looking game. I was just kind of really gripped by the story in general, actually.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I mentioned last week I was playing around between PC and Series X and got it running slightly better on. But to be honest, like I said, it made no difference because the story was so captivating that it literally made no difference. It was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, and it's one of those games as well where there is a small benefit playing it on PC, but because it's the gameplay is very slow paced, and it's not you're not getting any benefit running that at 60 FPS or anything like that.
No,
right?
exactly.
It's more a story driven game, and so I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I played that. I went back and revisited, and I'm still playing God of War on PS5 because they brought out a patch for that.
Is this your first time through or second time?
No, this will be like my third time.
Oh, wow. Okay, right. So you're a veteran. How are you finding the patch? Does it make a huge difference?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so it introduced a enhanced performance mode. It's called, which is PS5 specific, which gives you 60 FPS at 4K.
Okay. Nice.
So
it was a good looking game to start with, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a fantastic looking game anyway. And with the kind of extra fidelity is quite dazzling in real time. Do you know what I mean? Like seeing the visuals and the frame rate in tandem in general is really impressive. So that and then I think the only other thing I've been playing for again the fifth time is actually Resident Evil 4 on the Switch. Because I just kind of been I think since the Village demonstration, I've really been kind of a Resident Evil mood. So I wanted to go back to that and enjoy it. So that's been about it, really.
Okay, no, that's cool. And Pong Soul, what have you been up to?
Well, as always, I'm all over the place with my gaming. Right now, unfortunately, I'm trying to finish out this battle pass that I paid for Call of Duty. So I've been putting a lot of time into that this weekend because it's 2 XP weekend, so double XP weekend. So I've been doing a lot of that. Did play through about 80% of the Medium. which is absolutely a fantastic game. The story is just incredible work by Bloober once again, an ascending studio. I know they're not on our topic list today, but really anybody who has not sat down, I'm not a horror fan. Resident Evil 7, I can't do it. Right. So a lot of people got the wrong idea. This was going to be horror. I would call this a psychological thriller, but it's a beautiful story. The story is like it's already been mentioned, it's gripping, right? It just wants you to it makes you want to keep playing, to see what happens next. So been doing that, jump back into Division 2 and Ghost Recon Breakpoint with their updates. Shout out to Ubisoft for still supporting some of their older games. Not every company does that, and obviously people can have issues with Ubisoft, but at the end of the day, they did put some work to go back and kind of to get these up-resed, and obviously the frames per second for the next gen consoles that we are now all enjoying. So makes a world of difference. And
I mean, they've been very busy, haven't they? I mean, they've banged out Valhalla, they've banged out Phoenix. We've got Far Cry 6 coming. Plus, they're still updating and patching some of the previous titles. It's fantastic.
Exactly. They're my fast food restaurant for devs, right? I know what I'm going to get. Sometimes it's good, but it's never going to be bad. It's never going to be a steak quality, but it's always going to satisfy me at the end of the day. So I love them. And anybody who tried Breakpoint and didn't enjoy it the first time around, go back and try it. It's beautiful. They've added so much content to it. It's well worth the time. It truly is now a Ghost Recon game, especially when you're playing with other people. So do that. Tried a little game called Outward, which is an older game. I think it came out in 2019, I want to say, maybe 2020. But it's by Deep Silver, one of their smaller teams. Graphically, not impressive at all. You look at it and say, what is this, a 360 game? But it's a survival RPG game. It went on sale for $10. So I picked it up and tried it out with a couple friends because you can actually team up. And it's a good time. If you like survival, if you like that, monitoring your health and your food and your water, and you like RPGs, it's a kind of interesting combination of the two. So
is it a bit like Project Winter? Have you had a go on that yet?
No, I haven't. I actually downloaded Project Winter and played through the tutorial. And love it. Yeah, love it. That one is, obviously Among Us style, where you're supposed to play with a big group of friends. Outward is more two-person. It's third-person view. But again, RPG, you can become a magic user, you can use sword, you can use shield. I mean, you can do whatever you want to in it, but it's got the survival aspect. So you can play on hardcore, which is permadeath. I'm not doing that. Yeah, I'm not doing that. But cool little game. Again, for $10, why not? So.
And what's it called? Sorry?
Outward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else on your radar that you're going to be trying to over the next week or so?
Project Winter. I'm going to be looking for, a group of people. I've already talked to Fun Speculation, Mav, obviously, and I think we're going to hop into that. The Falconeer, I also started and played through the first level. Now that it's on Game Pass, that was an awesome surprise, by the way. Since I did not purchase it, it was on my list, but we had so many games come out and been so busy, I just didn't get to it. So for that game to show up in a Game Pass, the dev, he is an absolutely amazing guy in his interviews. Just an awesome dude, and the game is absolutely beautiful. So I'm glad I get to try that. So I'll probably be hopping in that.
Exactly. And to be honest, I did that earlier today. I hopped onto the Falconeer for the first time. I was really pleasantly surprised by it.
Yes. Controls are tight. I mean, it's well done.
Yeah, in fact, I started recording a video for the podcast. Actually, like we're seeing, this is obviously Tetris Effect. But to be honest, it's so. It took me a little while to get used to the controls, and the camera kind of swings around quite a lot. I'm not sure how kind of well it would lend itself to perhaps a game video like that. But no, I had lots of fun playing it.
Yeah, it's funny that we don't get a lot of flying games like that anymore.
No.
Back in the day, we used to get a lot, but now we just don't. So it was a little, disorienting at first to get used to it again. But once you get it down, the controls are spot on. I liked what I saw in the first level, so hopefully that continues on. He just dropped an expansion. I think it's really cheap too, where you get to fly a dragon. So
Oh, wow.
if I like the game, I'll definitely be picking up the expansion.
Yeah, excellent. No, that's cool. Well, let's move on to topic one if we can. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you for being here with us on this journey. Please do chip in. Let us know what your thoughts and impressions are with the topics that we discussed tonight. But first off the bat, I don't know if anyone else has covered this. I think I found this on Randall Thor 19's channel, and I think it might have come from Jez Corden. But apparently, there's rumor of multiple Xbox 2021 events, which that's not going to come as a surprise, I don't suppose. It's already been stated that Microsoft won't be at E3 for an in-person presentation this year. Again, that's of no real surprise. But it does sound like there may be one coming fairly soon. And I was just kind of put it out to the panel, really. We'll start with you, if that's okay, Pucks. Just wonder what you think, the platform holders may have learned from last year, because obviously coronavirus hit and then knocked E3 for 6. And then, unfortunately, I don't think E3's officially been cancelled yet, unless anyone else can correct me. But I can't imagine that it's going to go ahead. So... what lessons do you think the platform holders would have learned from last year, and how do you want your information delivered, for the coming year and all of the games that are coming?
That's actually a really good question, actually. So I suppose looking back at last year, I think there was a lot of, the pretense at the beginning of last year was that E3 was going ahead, and all of these platform holders had all of their information pretty much ready. Most of the trailers at this point probably would have been finished being made, and they had their schedule of what was going to be shown. And since obviously the big COVID outbreak, all that got cancelled. But then I'd like to believe that a lot of these platform holders they had that content ready to show off anyway. They just had to, amongst themselves, decide how they're going to show that. And I think similar to what we spoke about last week in a way, I think the two main events that we had from Xbox last year, the two big showcases, we kind of got shown a lot of new information as to what was coming out in the next year. And a lot of it's been stated for this year and in 2022 and beyond. But I think this year, throughout last year, I think a lot of the world was still adjusting to, especially in the game development space. A lot of studios went fully remote as much as they could. And I think a lot of the studios kind of have now understood the toll that has taken on the development process. And we've already had word from a number of studios, I believe, or murmurings on different news websites that, all of these different games, PlayStation, Xbox or otherwise, are kind of due to be delayed because of, we now understand the toll this is having. Most people, everyone, or the large majority of people, I'd like to believe, respect that, COVID is no joke and actually we need to be careful, we need to be safe. So I remember saying last week that I kind of felt that maybe Microsoft played too many cards too quick in a way, because I know last week we mentioned about how, what else has Microsoft got to show us, and of course there is going to be stuff to show, even if it's just gameplay of the trailers that we saw last year. Mm-hmm. So if anything, I think a lot of the studios now have an understanding as to what their new schedules are going to be like, having worked remote for probably just coming up to a year now, if not about 8-9 months. As well as, I think, a lot of just global understanding that actually people are happy to wait as long as these games come out in great condition, so to speak. We've had a lot of games more recently as well where they felt like they've been rushed out the door, haven't quite met the expectations, and of course they become a big fuster-cluck, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So what's your take on
Halo Infinite being delayed, given that we've now got Cyberpunk 2077 to use as a kind of a benchmark of how it can go wrong?
I'm perfectly happy to wait for it, if I'm honest. I mean, I know there was a bit of news, like I think it was yesterday or today, where 343 mentioned that they were releasing new and different ways to play Halo or something. I know that was to do with the Master Chief Collection, but that was very vague, and it kind of makes you think that, okay, are they going to somehow change or alter the Master Chief Collection to somehow fit into the new Halo Infinite universe? Or I don't know, but I suppose given what we have seen from more recent releases, I'm very much happy to wait for it and let this thing cook in the oven almost as long as it needs to, in a way, just to, at least in a releasable state, because a lot of these games, they're not going to be 100% feature complete from the off. Games as a service doesn't work like that now, does it? You kind of have the finished base game, and then you've got at least 2 to 3 years of content updates and tweaks and changes, all the rest of it. So regarding that game in particular, I'm very much happy to wait for it and see how long it takes, because I think things like, there's loads of things on Game Pass I'm catching up on, as well as other smaller indie titles and a few bigger titles which we know are coming out earlier in the year, this year. So I think people have become a lot more patient given the world dynamic, and I'd like to believe a lot of people are happy to wait a little bit longer just to make sure that these games that they so beloved are done right, done justice.
No, that makes sense. And like I say, I think nearly everyone at the time kind of assumed that delaying Halo Infinite was the right thing to do, even before Cyberpunk 2077 had launched. And I think since then, it's obviously absolutely the right thing for them to have done. Luke, come to you next, if that's all right. What mistakes do you think the platform holders made last year, and what do you think they're going to try and correct with the information they relay this year to everyone?
I think I think the main thing that they will probably try to correct is just the level of gameplay they show in any showcases they have.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I think they were both Sony and Microsoft at times were guilty of that in the showcases last year. And I think that's partly understandable because they're trying to get people hyped for a new generation. You're announcing games that feasibly are going to be quite a long time away. You don't have much to show for them. So I think they will probably try and make sure that they've got a lot more gameplay to show when they do have whatever showcase they have. Apart from that, I don't actually think they'll do much different. I suspect both of them have upcoming showcases, in the first quarter of this year, maybe the first third, something like that. And certainly, they're going to have a presence of, well, not an E3 presence, but a presence of themselves around that kind of normal E3 window because it's a good time to do that anyway. I mean, E3 in general, I do question its relevancy. I think going into the future, even in an era beyond COVID, I'm not sure whether. I think certainly if you look at the metrics for both Sony and Microsoft across their showcases last year, I mean, it would, they've got a captive audience of huge proportions beyond perhaps even E3 at points. So I think they'll have looked at that and gone, you know what? I think maybe this is the future.
Sony had already walked away from E3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think the one that's been onto this for a long time has actually been Nintendo. Capable of melting down the internet through various Nintendo Directs, etc. At massive, completely varied times. So. I think everybody's going to go forward that way, especially Sony and Microsoft, and it just makes sense. And like I said, I just hope that the one thing they learn is to kind of have more compact showcases with much more gameplay to get people hyped up.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. And to be honest, yes, it's interesting you raised that about Nintendo with the Nintendo Direct because, once Sony's kind of walked away from it and perhaps, like you say, Microsoft do the same, I don't think E3 would be sustainable at that point without any of the big platform holders present, if that's the case. And like I say, if Sony have already set that precedent, then that, like you say, that the writing could already be on the wall. Pong, is this a year when it comes to information from the platform holders, particularly Sony and Microsoft, of just a year of updates, do you think? Because Luke raised a very good point. He thinks that, they need to consider carefully what they show gameplay footage wise, but I'm guessing we're all hoping that they've actually got a little bit more to show this year. So do you think there's going to be any new surprises that, games that will be launching this year, or is it just updates on stuff that we've already seen?
No, I think we definitely will see some new stuff. I think Microsoft especially is going to pull out the big guns. When you look at Sony, like people have already talked about it, they were already transitioning away from E3, right? So, and you could see it last year. Now, everybody was thrown into chaos last year, except for maybe Nintendo, right? Since they didn't have a new console launching, they had more focus. They didn't have a whole lot of new games, but they had some big ones like Animal Crossing and stuff released. So, but Sony itself was a little bit more prepared than Microsoft because they had already started to do that. And I think we can all agree what they did put together, the production values were a little bit higher than what Microsoft was able to cobble together, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft obviously was caught with their pants down in a lot of ways, right? They had a lot of pressure on them, as Sony did as well. But Microsoft also had the whole Halo thing going on. They obviously had to transition a whole heck of a lot more people to work at home than Sony did. And they obviously did the best that they could with what they had, but it wasn't up to standards. And I think everybody took notice of that. But
so given now that they've obviously had a year to get used to this, and they pretty much know it's coming, they're going to be prepared for it this year. Do you think the events are going to be much slicker?
Yes, I believe so. And if I was Microsoft, I would actually be calling Jeff Keighley up and making a deal. And I think him and his team could benefit this year if, Sony might do their own thing anyways, just because that's what they do. But I think Microsoft, looking at what he did and you can have your opinion of Jeff Keighley, we all do, right? Yeah. But what he did with the video game awards was nothing short of spectacular. It was one of the best video game award shows put together in recent memory and during a pandemic. So if I was Microsoft, I would plan a big summer E3 style event, especially after the ZeniMax deal's clear and you've got new games to show, because I still believe Starfield is due this year. And maybe another one in there. There might be a Wolfenstein 3 that's ready to go that we have not heard about yet.
Well, there are rumors of Forza Horizon 5 as well.
Correct. So I would call Keighley and his team and do something exclusive. If you don't have your own production team ready to rock and roll this year, which I'm assuming they do for some smaller events, but to put something big together for a summer showcase of some kind where you're ready to launch, you're getting ready for the holiday season, because we all know holiday 2021 is going to be key. We expect that consoles will be available by that point in retail, brick and mortar, and online, available everywhere. Microsoft needs to make their big push with Halo launching come this holiday season. So I would definitely put together a huge showcase. I'm sure the Halo team 343 will have something ready by then, whether it is the multiplayer beta, or whether it is an actual a redo.
The strange thing for 343, they've actually got something to prove now, haven't they? They need to bury the hatchet of what happened last year.
And they need a big showing, right? They're going to need a big showing to bring. People are going to buy Halo no matter what. Don't get me wrong. Even if it launched last year, Halo probably still would have sold well, right? Even in the state it was in. But now that they've decided this year to polish things, since they're telling us that everything's complete, the campaign's complete, the multiplayer was supposedly ready to go last year, and they're just polishing, they could really use a big showing to get that hype going. Okay, they've gone back to it. They fixed what we all saw was issues, and now this game is looking on par with what we expected. That would be a huge deal, again, to go along with whatever Bethesda's working on, because again, people forget E3, it was, the big players minus Sony now, and then, ZeniMax, Bethesda had their own show at E3, right? I mean, that's huge. And then that was yearly. So they definitely probably have stuff ready to go.
Do you think that will continue now that, once the Microsoft deal's done? Do you think that will continue?
That's an interesting question. That was actually brought up somewhere else. And it's an interesting question to think about. I personally believe that you have to, you think about, they still have QuakeCon too, right? Yeah. So QuakeCon is a huge deal. And so I don't know. Microsoft's going to want to put their stamp all over it now that Bethesda is will be a first party studio, right? But I still think you have to almost keep them with their own showing, just because of the amount of content that they have with those teams. I think that, whether it's Microsoft shows off, Obsidian stuff and Playground Games and Fable and all, 343, but then I think you almost have to have a dedicated portion of your show just for ZeniMax and Bethesda and all the studios underneath that. I think that would be important, just because they are still, even if they're going to be a first party to Microsoft, they're still going to be known separately as, Bethesda. I mean, that name still has power. So I think it's important to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it will be interesting to see if they do carry on with their own shows. And I do agree. I think they should. I think you're right. And we're going to talk about exclusivity later. I know that's a horse that's been flogged quite a lot, and it's not necessarily around the Bethesda acquisition, although we probably will touch on that. But it will be interesting because obviously if there are still multi-platform elements to the Bethesda studios, then perhaps a big event like that would actually be sort of beneficial. But let's come to you next, Pucks. How are we doing in the chat just before we crack on?
Yeah, I've got 2 comments here saved from Wakanda Xbox News today. The first one says, let's hope any virtual show they do are structured better than most of those done last year and that there are no bugs. And the second one is that, in my opinion, any show with no content will now be classed as an embarrassment, and I hope they have learnt last year's lessons.
So do I. I mean, I'm not 100% confident they have, but this year will be the the test perhaps. But it will be interesting. But I completely agree. I hope they've learnt their lesson.
That's it so far. That's all I've got.
Okay, well, I think Luke raised quite an interesting point, actually. It was around, it might have even been Pong Soul as well, actually. This is still a really big year for Microsoft, isn't it? Because, they were doubling down, getting Halo out the door and launching a brand new console and stuff. And that was a huge mammoth task for them to do. But unfortunately, as we know, Halo's been pushed back. So, they've still got that to happen. And it's quite an interesting sort of scenario, this, because even when it was cancelled back in, was it August? I think it was August, late August or early September, they actually announced it. I think it wasn't long after one of the showcases, wasn't it, that they decided to postpone it. So even back then we were saying, well, actually, when it does actually launch, it's almost like a new launch for the console itself, because obviously, launching Halo is a massive deal. And I think, as Pong Soul said, if that can coincide with much better availability of the Series X consoles, particularly if they're on store shelves and you could just go in and walk in and buy one, this is another massive year for Microsoft, because they can have another soft launch of the Series X and S perhaps. I'm just curious, do you think these online media events that the platform holders do other than E3 probably hit and target casual gaming market a little bit better? Is it a better marketing tool to get to the average gamer, do you think?
You're asking me, sorry, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I think a lot of it's mainly the hardcore audience which are on the lookout for announcements and are then looking forward to these shows, whereas I don't think the casual market is outwardly looking for those announcements, definitely not. But then I suppose at that point you're then hoping, as to be Microsoft, you're then hoping that your more casual market are, regularly viewing gaming news or different websites which are going to have these things announced, to which I don't know if casuals do enough of. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because I fall under the hardcore camp, so I read different websites every day. So I don't know, but my instincts tell me that I don't think that is enough on its own. But then I'm not sure what else they could do either, because there's only so many ways that people try to consume content and try to advertise in front of people's faces. And I'm not sure if there's any much more things that, either PlayStation or Microsoft could really do to get more of those people in, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think E3 is a thing in its own right, isn't it? And it normally hosted by other, like IGN normally do their commentary over the top, and like you say, obviously appeals to all the enthusiasts. Whereas perhaps these showcase events, they go out on the Xbox channel itself. They can have it on their desktop or dashboard on the Xbox consoles perhaps, and things like that. Just makes me wonder if it has a greater reach to the casuals. Luke, do you think this is a pretty big year for Microsoft and Xbox? And do you think they're going to go for a second kind of soft launch with the advent of Halo Infinite coming along and hopefully more stock on the shelves?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is a big year for them, just by virtue of the fact that they're going to have Halo alone makes it a big year. I mean, that is their tentpole franchise at the moment. So and I think I mean, both manufacturers are going to struggle probably I think until the summer to have kind of readily available stock everywhere. And I think AMD already talked about that. But I think once that hits, you're going to have probably a second wave of events and hopefully releases as well to kind of really start ramping up this generation and get it going. And I think for Microsoft, they had, I don't want to say a soft launch, but certainly more of a soft launch of their console than Sony did, who had, conceivably bigger first-party titles at launch.
That's purely down to first-party titles, is it? You think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And I mean, that might have been very different had Halo launched. Obviously, that would have been very different because that's a huge game to launch with. But that's just the way it fell. But they've still done, Microsoft have still done exceptionally well, notwithstanding that. And I think as you start to look towards the middle of this year and going on from that, and when you've got Halo and probably at least one or two other quite big titles that they've probably not talked about that are launching as well, at least from a first party perspective, I think they're going to have a really good year, and I think that's great for everyone, right? I mean, it's great for us who play those games, it's great for the industry for them to be in that position. And it gives kind of Sony more to think about, in terms of when do they get their games out, what games do they get out, what do they really push for this year. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Pong, will come to you if that's okay. Without this sort of deteriorating into sort of an Xbox versus PlayStation type comment, but I think perhaps potentially Microsoft are looking at an incredibly important year for them, mainly because they've got their quadruple A flagship title coming, whereas Sony perhaps don't just yet. We obviously don't know what Sony are up to, but perhaps Microsoft see this as a year where they absolutely need to capitalize on, like you say, having sufficient supply on the shelves and a huge game coming. I mean, they've got to ramp up all the marketing again, so it's almost like another huge console launch for them this year, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and that's what I was alluding to, and then you guys all picked up on here is for me personally, I did consider this year a soft launch for Microsoft when they lost Halo, right? So I think that changed everything. Yes, the marketing for Halo had to go forward because they obviously signed so many deals with so many companies. I mean, we saw them on pop cans and bags of chips and whatever else, right? That's they had put all their eggs in that basket. So when those eggs turned out to be rotten, right? I think what they did was they pivoted immediately, and I'm assuming so, and I'm hoping so, right? Kind of selfishly, that Microsoft pivoted at that point. Phil and the team looked at it and said, okay, 2020 is basically a soft launch. We're going to have limited product anyway. So with a hardcore who are always going to buy this no matter what we have, and obviously we've seen the numbers, and they're hanging close with Sony, and both consoles are on pace with last gen, and people forget that Xbox actually started out of the gates very hot last gen despite all of their trips, right? So to see those numbers now, the hardcore are buying in mass. We know that we have an influx of a ton of new people due to the pandemic and the situations around the world that are now getting introduced into the gaming market and the gaming industry as a whole. So I think and I hope that Phil and his team pivoted to 2021 and said, that's our real launch, like our mass launch, right? We're going to have consoles everywhere, and we've got our biggest franchise, our biggest tent pole that we have in our basket, right? And we're going to launch full force. And I'm hoping that that's why, again, what we were just talking about as far as the shows go, I think from a personal standpoint, looking up from the outside in, that they have to go full bore. They have to put together some big shows along with some smaller shows, get that Xbox name back out there again, get the hype going leading up to Halo, possibly Starfield. Do not, do not discredit Starfield and what that's going to mean.
That's the second time give me a percentage of how confident you are you think that might launch, because I know Bethesda have a history of announcing games very late in development, sometimes almost months out. So you actually think that's a likelihood for this year?
I think so. If you look at all the interviews that have been done starting last year, almost every executive that's been interviewed, Xbox executive that's been interviewed, has mentioned Starfield at least once. Okay. They are riding that big time. They know that Todd Howard and the Bethesda name and a brand new sci-fi style RPG. And don't forget, Mass Effect hype is already in full swing. Sci-fi is coming back big, and no better year to have a brand new sci-fi style RPG from considered one of the greatest minds as far as developing a game, Todd Howard, coming out on your system exclusively come holiday 2021. So I would put it at probably right now I'm probably at about an 80%.
So that's interesting because that could potentially clash with Halo Infinite. Let's assume that's coming out in November. Do you think that's likely then? Would they release those two games so close together?
I think it's going to be prior to then. I would say early. And again, when I say holiday 2021, the holiday season starts so early now. If you look at the stores and stuff, so everybody kind of assumes November. I would probably say September, October. I think we're going to have a big summer reveal. It's going to be the classic Bethesda style. Todd's going to come out on stage or whatever the case may be, what they do for the show, and say, hey, it's time we introduce the world to Starfield. Here it is. He's going to show a big reveal, and then, oh, by the way, it's launching, September, October, somewhere in there, exclusively on the Xbox. And that's when it all breaks loose, right? Because that'll be the first big hit. And then everybody already knows Halo's coming after that. And again, from Microsoft's perspective, and I hope they've done this, they've retooled their calendars and said holiday 2021 is our actual real launch. And we're going to start seeing a ramp up throughout this year, especially after the ZeniMax deal gets done. I think that's their sole focus right now. I think that's the domino that has to fall first, obviously. But I think we're going to see a ramp up again in marketing. We're talking about almost a nearly $2 trillion company behind Xbox. And Satya himself is behind this 100%, which means the coffers are open. I think they spend the money and start that ramp again, just as if they were launching a new console in 2021. And I think we're going to see marketing, we're going to see hype levels, we're going to see shows, we're going to see whatever it takes so that when that hits and everybody's ready to spend their money, and hopefully the world is closer back to normal at that point and people are back to work and have that expendable cash to, buy their family their new system or whatever the case may be, or themselves. I think that's what Microsoft is shooting for.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Imagine if they did. My God. Chat. Let us know what you think. Do you think Starfield's coming this year? My God, that would be fantastic. And perhaps, like you say, if this has been the plan all along, perhaps Microsoft wanted to obviously launch with Halo Infinite, and then 2021's big hitter game was going to be Starfield, because they obviously knew the Bethesda deal was hopefully going to go through. That would kind of make sense, but now that's been postponed. Yeah, we could have two absolute bangers in 1 year. That would be fantastic.
And two different genres. I mean, again, you're going to pull in different audiences from both. You're going to have some overlap, but with Halo being Halo, what it is, first-person shooter, it's going to have its own competition with Battlefield and Call of Duties, but Halo stands alone, and so many people have been waiting for a new Halo. I think that kind of overcomes that battle. But Starfield being a straight, from what we know, again, who knows? It could be something completely different, but obviously we're all assuming it's going to be another RPG, Elder Scrolls in space style game. That hits two different genres. And so, again, to have those back to back, however they line those two up, you're right. It'd be a killer lineup coming into holiday 2020. No matter what Sony's got on its plate, those two names alone really would push Microsoft to the front.
Well, it also kind of almost ticks the box of what we've been hearing around, how kind of passively aggressive Microsoft are going to be probably this generation with getting, quality content out there as well. Fantastic. Puxley, where are we with the chat, my friend?
Yeah, we've got a number of things that are coming, quite interesting things here. So I'll start from the top. This has been answered a number of times by different people in the chat anyway, but I will read it out for our own benefit in case anyone here wants to answer. So the first one here is from XYZ786, who says, just out of curiosity, what made the Game Awards last year so great? I said a number of things in the chat already, and I suppose if I was to answer this, I'd probably say that it was, if anything, from what was quite a poor year, due to the world situation, it was quite impressive how such a show was managed to be put together, in my opinion. All those kind of big announcements and getting everyone together on video calls in the state that the world was, I think is the most impressive for me.
Can I? Yeah, let me have.
Please.
One, if that's all right. I think the presentation was very good. I didn't like the pacing. I can't remember her name now, and I've got nothing against her personally.
I agree with what you're going to say, though.
Yeah, we kept snapping back to some mobile game, and the stuff on, and was it Twitch? I can't remember now.
It was like an Instagram filter thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. We didn't really need that. I think if you are an Xbox fan through and through, there's always an element of suspicion with Jeff Keighley anyway, so perhaps people are kind of having to overcome that a little bit. I know Xbox, they actually employed Jeff to do one of the pre-show events. Was it for the second Xbox showcase?
I can't remember personally.
Yeah, I think
it was the second. It was the second. He did the pre-show, and
That's
that kind of that wasn't good because the people that he invited on were not necessarily Xbox fans.
Exactly.
So that wasn't very good.
So I think there's an element of suspicion around there, but I think the presentation side of things, and if you are completely impartial, then I think it was probably a good show for those that are really impartial, to be honest, because it did kind of replace what E3 kind of does, and it did bring everyone together in one place, I suppose. But that's my take. What do you think, Luke?
I think the presentational stuff was very well done. Really slick, again, as Puck's commented on, considering the the state of the world at the time, and it was all, there didn't seem to be any mistakes, which usually you get in some kind of, when Zoom's involved and lots of people are involved in that, there's usually some technical hitch, but there really wasn't anything. So it was super impressive from that perspective, and I think the show in general. I mean, I do agree with the kind of the pacing points, and there are issues around it being the Game Awards. A lot of the show is about reveals and stuff, and how that should be structured. But I think in general the show was very good, and it was a nice thing to end the year on. And I think they did really quite well with it. And there were some good reveals. You had stuff like Perfect Dark, for example, right? Which is
true.
A big announcement, and of other games. So I think it was that's those kind of broad reasons why it was a good show.
He did a different. What was the show where he did the Christopher Lloyd thing that introduced the Operation game? That was very weird, wasn't it?
Oh I can't remember.
Was that the summer showcase or something? There was something else.
Something, maybe.
That was bizarre.
Yeah.
Pong, what's your take on the Game Awards?
Well, like I already stated, I was very impressed with it. Most of the time, the Game Awards contain a lot of fluff that just it bogs it down, and I actually enjoyed the pacing, except for the middle part. But I think that happens almost in every show to some degree. There's always going to be a slow part that kind of just breaks it up a little bit. But I think the pandemic and everything going on forced Keighley and his team to get rid of a lot of the garbage. And I was happy not to see all the crowd shots and all that stuff that I don't like award shows personally. I'm there just for the reveals. So for me, I just thought that the reveals and how they actually had them scheduled worked very well. And I think there was some exciting moments throughout with some new games like Pearl Abyss, and that kind of stuff from developers we weren't expecting, along with like the Perfect Dark reveal. So I think they did a nice job keeping the show going, and obviously the production value for the circumstances they were under was extremely high. And I love some of the stuff that they did. And then, obviously being able to bring, like everybody's already touched on, bringing in some of the smaller developers like the Among Us, I think, people who have worked so hard for so many years. That game has been actually out for 2 years already, or 3 years. And to see them win awards and them with real emotion, because that stuff, the human stuff was fantastic to be able to get to come across despite the situation. So that's why I liked it so much.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. Yeah, and to be honest, like I say, I think it divided people in certain regards. But yeah, Pucks, where are we on the chat? Where else are we?
Yeah, so I've got quite a few other things to get through here. So second one here is from Serda Isguinness, who asks, is there a Discord server that I can join with for this nice community? One, thank you for the nice comment. And two, do we have our Discord fully set up yet? Is that ready to go?
It's in the process, actually, yes. So we kind of do.
Okay, so
it's an interesting point, and we'll have to give details as and when.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if more of you out there in the chat are eager for us to make you guys to join a Discord, let us know, and we'll see if we can make it happen.
Yeah.
Next comment here from Belly Full of Foe, who says, I think this would be a good year for Xbox. Maybe they have a few aces up their sleeve that are unannounced for this year, which I fully agree with as well, personally.
Yeah, apparently there's some rumours that there's some big announcements coming that they still haven't done yet, which you would expect, and the same for Sony. Yeah.
Comment here from Wakanda Xbox News Today, going back off the Game Awards stuff, who says, just my opinion about Jeff. Not all of the announcements came across with the same passion, but that's just my opinion, and it seemed unprofessional. Okay. Again, this probably goes into the whole console war thing, but I'm not going to get into that personally. Next comment here from Bounty Boom, who asks us, can we please not go into the PlayStation, Xbox, and just stick to one subject, please? Thank you. I hate console wars. Okay. I did bring this up because I did want to make an important point that even though it may come across that way sometimes, I mean, unfortunately, I think it's the nature of the beast when it comes to these conversations, and some particular topics you can't always help kind of comparing the two or putting the two against each other, but
they're competitors, and to be honest,
exactly,
we will criticise both equally. To be honest, this isn't, although this is an Xbox centric show, we certainly poke as much criticism and critique Xbox's way than we do PlayStation. That's for sure. And to be honest, both platforms I think are fantastic, and they've both got their strengths and weaknesses that we kind of discuss, I guess. Yeah,
100%. As you say, we're more Xbox-centric channel, but for those who may not know, I mean, I was pro PS4, so to speak, last generation. So any and all gamers are welcome here. Is the short point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another comment here from XYZ786 who says, games clashing at this point. Game Pass has me spoiled, and I like this one because I'm very much in the same boat. I was due to get myself the new Super Mario 3D World kind of re-release for the Switch on the 12th, but I might have to delay that until later in the month because I've just got so many things to play.
That's interesting. So this is cross-platform, and it's not console warrior at all, but the fact that you have Game Pass, is that kind of stealing your attention from perhaps playing a PlayStation game or a Nintendo game, do you think?
It is in a way, yeah. I mean, as I said at the beginning, I've got into replaying Hollow Knight, for example. I mean, I played and loved that on the Switch. It's the first time I played it. I'm replaying that on Xbox now, and I've been discovering new kind of smaller titles as well. I played a detective game called Connor. I don't think I mentioned it, or I know I mentioned it in the kind of the backstage before we went live, that I've also been playing smaller games like, What Remains of Edith Finch, for example. Yep. So I'm discovering this massive back catalogue of things which I'm just really enjoying putting my teeth into, really, and that's kind of why I'm a big advocate for Game Pass personally. Yep. And I've said this on almost every show. Another comment here from Invader Gaming, who says that they also need to show gameplay for some of their games. Everyone is curious about Fable.
Well,
yes, we are.
Yeah, and I agree. And to be honest, what they've done is they've set the scene or set the tone for this coming year, I think. I absolutely hope and pray they can advance what we've already seen in terms of showing us a little bit more, particularly blooming Hellblade 2, because that was shown on the original Series X launch of the last Game Awards, or the Game Awards before last, and we haven't really seen anything since at all, apart from a few YouTube videos that just no one's interested in, if I'm completely honest. Don't mean to be rude, but I think everyone's so stoked for the game that we want to see more of it, don't we?
Yeah, I think that sits that way quite a long way of a lot of different games, isn't it? I mean, another rumour that's been going around is about a new kind of Banjo-Kazooie remaster or remake of some description, and if that is true, I'm going to absolutely love it, but it's a lot of exciting things that we don't know about yet. And finally, from Tuku Ngula 2021, who just says, this will be a big year for Microsoft, and I couldn't agree more, personally. I felt the need to say that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that, to be honest. That kind of brings us neatly onto the second topic. But yeah, now let's round off that one. Yeah, I think it is. I think the postponement of Halo Infinite has actually done Microsoft an absolutely huge favour in lots of ways. They can polish the game, and it obviously sounds like it's in a semi-ready state anyway. So everything from now on in is probably polish, and they don't want to get caught in the same situation as obviously, unfortunately, Cyberpunk got caught in. And yeah, like you say, if they can do that second kind of launch, then yeah, that's going to be fantastic for them. It's a very important year for Microsoft. Chat, thank you very much. A fantastic chat. We've seen some new names in the chat, so really appreciate you people being here. It's absolutely fantastic to see your comments and opinions. Absolutely fine. Throw anything at us. But we'll move on with topic 2, if that's okay. And these are sort of smaller news topics that have cropped up during the week, so we'll kind of touch on them briefly. And I don't know if everyone's kind of come across these. Come to you first, if that's okay, Luke. Seamus Blackley, the creator and the originator of the original Xbox, he tweeted a little while ago asking if fans would like to see a stylish old-school Xbox that plays... the original games designed around the original 2000 prototype, which I believe was like literally an X with a big green button in the middle. And I think he's been overrun with comments. I think he's had lots and lots of favourable comments come back, and he's going to try and tap Phil Spencer on the show. Is that something that you're into? Do you like that sort of thing? Have you bought any of the sort of legacy remake consoles at all?
Yeah, I think that's it's potentially a cool idea. The only bit that I guess is something that I find quite funny is that I think, and it's more a testament to Microsoft's back and pat.
You know what? You're going to say exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't see the real point of it, because
we don't need it.
You don't need it, right? You can play pretty much most of what you want to play on your Series X or your Series S. So at that point, I guess it's just the novelty value. So I think it's a really cool idea, but it's not like a SNES kind of classic or whatever, or the PlayStation Classic, or any of these consoles where, unless you have the original hardware, you're not really going to get a chance to play these games anymore. So I think it's cool, and the prototype that they did have, the original design, is quite garish, but in a kind of nostalgic, nice way now, rather than something that's kind of horrible. So, I
was really gutted that wasn't the final design, because I thought it was really fantastic. But
it looked for the. I mean, I remember for the time, especially, it was really kind of futuristic.
Well, I mean, PlayStation 2 was just a black box.
Exactly. Days, It was really quite out there. So yeah, I like the idea in theory, but in practice, I'm not really sure the value of it.
No, fair enough. And to be honest, like I say, I'm pleased you said that, because I came to exactly the same conclusion. I can play Xbox One games anyway. But, Pongsol, have you are you a collector of the sort of retro remake consoles at all?
No, I'm actually not. This would strictly, my first thought was exactly what, obviously Luke just said, and what you were implying that you were going to say too, is every game that, if they do this, every game that's on there better be backwards compatible. I mean, otherwise there's going to be some people questioning why you put out this console with games that we can't play when you're so pro backwards compatible. So but for me, this would just be a collector's item. I mean, for the collectors, I'm happy for them. I can understand the appeal. I know plenty of people who do buy all the retro consoles, so it only makes sense to do an Xbox One. And if they actually went with that design, that would be a centerpiece, right? That'd be a showpiece for your collection. It would definitely stand out among all the other ones. So I think it's a great idea. I mean, more power to them if they want to do it. Great. There'll be plenty of people that would love to have that in their display for sure, even if they don't go back and play them. Because they already have them backwards compatible. I think plenty of people would love just to have that sitting around. I think it's a great looking device. I almost wish they would have gone with that original design. It would definitely still to this day probably be a collector's item if they did that. But yeah, no, more power to them. I hope they do it. Everybody else has done it, so why not Microsoft?
No, absolutely, and it's all a bit of game marketing as well, doesn't it? Gets it out in the headlines as well. I can't help feeling we've skipped a couple of consoles though, because we've kind of been working through the consoles sort of chronologically almost. But we obviously haven't had a Saturn or a Dreamcast. I would absolutely go out and, day one, buy a Saturn and Dreamcast kind of remake if they were to have some fantastic...
Those might be the first two that I actually buy. Since they're my two favorite consoles, that might actually get me to buy them.
Me too, absolutely. And obviously PlayStation 2, we had a little mini PS1. We're obviously PS2's kind of missing as well. But Pux, what's your take on all of this?
I always find the announcements of these kind of new mini... like games consoles exciting to see, but I'm never that fussed to buy them because I look at the price of these things. I mean, it's understandable to some degree, but then if you're again, I'm a hardware guy in terms of from trade. Kind of when I look at these specs, I kind of think you could just buy a Raspberry Pi, for example, with load RetroArch on it, and you've got an emulation station of everything out there. I know this sits in a very very big grey area, and people have different views and thoughts on kind of PC emulation, but for me it's always the cost of these things that throws it out, because I just know that for how much they are, I am personally not going to give it enough time and attention that warrants the cost. If you get what I mean. I'd play it for about an hour, if not a day at maximum, and I'd be like, jump back to Xbox or Switch or do you know what I mean? For me, they get old pretty quickly. They're kind of nice novelty toys, so to speak, but they're just too expensive for me for what they actually are, and compared to what you can get elsewhere for a lot less money, but better experience overall, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And to be honest, and I'll ask the whole panel, has anyone stuck RetroArch on their Series X and done some game emulation?
I haven't personally yet, no.
No, I haven't.
Nope, I haven't yet either.
No, I have, and it was great. It was absolutely fantastic to get some of the Dreamcast games working on the Series X. It's a most bizarre thing, and it's really nice to have the Series X controller being able to control, proper Sega games. But
it took you a while to set up, though, didn't it? But once you did, it ran nice. Was that right?
Oh, absolutely. It's the only thing that's ever run Sega Rally 2 flawlessly. And I mean absolutely flawlessly. It's better than the Dreamcast version, strangely enough. Because I've still got my Dreamcast and I actually compared them. So it's very bizarre, very bizarre.
I think, to be honest, can I just quickly add, though, because I think the most impressive like mini console I've seen is actually the Sega Mega Drive, or at least the older ones, because there was a particular model a number of years ago, and I think you can still buy it, where not only was it preloaded with about 40 or 60 Mega Drive games, but it also had a working slot for your, if you had cartridges still, you could actually plug them in and play them. Wow. And I found that the most impressive. Like, if you had an old collection of Mega Drive games, you just buy this little thing for about 60 quid. And there you go. You've got a new Mega Drive, so to speak. And that was probably the most impressive thing I have seen. I don't have one, but I know some family members of mine do. And when I've seen them, I was quite impressed with them.
You didn't fancy the little, Game Gear for stupid money?
What are you talking about? The Nintendo Game & Watch thing?
No. It was the little Sega one. What was the little Sega handheld? It was Game Gear, wasn't it?
Oh, it was Game Gear. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
With the tiny little screen, did you not see those? They did different versions, didn't they?
I think if anything, I was probably about 4 years old when they came out. So
I was going to say it was
a bit before my time, I think.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see if this kind of takes off, to be honest. I'm guessing it might not, but I thought it was quite a cool thing. And like I say, to have Xbox back in the news with those sort of things, it was a good thing. But it just makes me wonder what sort of games they'd put on there. Because I actually missed out on the original Xbox. So it would be quite interesting to see if they actually did something like Perfect Dark on there or whatever. But
well, I mean, you get Perfect Dark from 360 at least running on Game Pass. So is there any need?
Yeah, exactly. We're back to what Luke said. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, going full circle, yeah.
That's fine. Let's move on to the second one. Microsoft's general manager of cloud gaming. He was in an interview with, I can't remember who it was now. I'll find out the details. Game Rant. And he said, exclusive games aren't the answer. Now, you may be thinking, what was the question? But he said they're not the answer to pushing platforms forward. And I thought that was a little bit strange, actually, coming from a Microsoft executive yet again, saying that exclusive games weren't the answer. I think perhaps reading between the lines, he may have been talking between perhaps console and PC, not necessarily between platforms. But perhaps we'll go around and put it this way, because this week Stadia turned its back on its own first-party studios, which really surprised me. We'll come to you first with this, if that's okay, Pong. Is that of concern for Microsoft and PlayStation? Do you think that Stadia have turned their back on their first-party studios? Because does that then kind of infer that they might actually be going out to try and buy some third-party exclusives that obviously the other platform holders might not be getting?
No, I think they're actually cheering, especially Microsoft. I think Microsoft is kicking back and toasting to Stadia's demise, because of the simple fact is that that was one of the main competitors that Phil and many of the execs pointed out as what they were really focused on, right? Because they've got the infrastructure and they had the money to compete if they really wanted to, right? And just like Google seems to always do, we find out in the end they were just dipping their toe in the water and testing it.
Well, do you think this spells the end then?
Yes, yes, because I don't think any third party, any reasonable third party would put their game on Stadia to die right now. I don't, you know what I'm saying? There's not an install base there. There never will be an install base there, especially with how people feel about Stadia. Even if they went out and paid oodles of money for a third-party exclusive, they would not push any more Stadia out the door. Simply from the fact that, I mean, besides a very, very tiny amount, right? There will always be the hardcore that probably would go do it. But I think this is the death knell of Stadia. I think it's just a matter of time. Again, we've seen it throughout Google's history with all types of devices, all types of services. This is what they do, right? And so I think from Microsoft's standpoint, this is them throwing in the towel, at least for right now. But what it does is Microsoft already has a huge lead with their infrastructure, with their xCloud, with their streaming service, with Game Pass, right? They already have this extreme lead, and there's a couple of competitors who could walk into the market, Amazon being one and Google being the other, with the infrastructure, and maybe Apple if we want to throw them in the conversation, but who knows what they do. But those two had the infrastructure and the money to jump into the waters full force if they wanted to. They could cannonball it and buy up a bunch of stuff and have it up and running with a ton of content and compete. And one of them just seemingly threw in the towel and said, nope, we're out. This isn't worth it for us. Now, again, the reasons why Google does what they do, no idea. It baffles the mind if you think about it. There's no reason, and I feel awful for all the devs and all the people that jumped on ship with these guys and left. I mean, what, the head of Santa Monica, Sony Santa Monica? She jumped over there. Jade Redmond, Raymond. She jumped over there. I feel awful, and all the dev teams that put their eggs in this basket. Thankfully, with where the industry is and how healthy it is right now, we just saw Microsoft put out a tweet, and we saw a bunch of other people put out a tweet, but Microsoft specifically put out a tweet saying they're looking for 483 positions right now, which is absolutely insane to think about. The video game market's exploding. So hopefully all these devs and all these people that were involved with this will find new homes. But Google being out of the race, seemingly out of the race right now, has to be a win for Microsoft. And because their lead will only continue to increase. Amazon, they have the Luna, but they haven't shown their hand yet what they're going to do and what their plans are. So I think this just gives Microsoft a bigger head start. And as we all know, Netflix got their head start and nobody's really been able to compete with them since. So I think for Microsoft, this is a huge win. I do believe that Stadia is done. I can't see any third party taking that check, knowing that they're going to have a very limited audience looking at that game, and most people will dismiss it instantly, no matter what the name on it is, just simply from the fact that it is only on Stadia, and people are going to have to go get a Stadia to play it without their achievements, without their trophies, without all the stuff that's been that we now expect. I just don't think it happens.
Wow. Well, I know lots of people on the internet have pretty much touted that actually this isn't necessarily the end of Stadia. And to be honest, when I first saw the news, I came to the same conclusion you did. Luke, you've tried Stadia. Do you think this spells the end for them?
I don't necessarily think it spells, the end, but I can't see where they go from here. I think what will happen is it will probably end up Stadia being some kind of enterprise solution for various other platform holders or particular publishers or something like that to get their game out there. To be honest, ever since Microsoft have kind of alluded to Google and Amazon way back when being their primary competition, I always thought that was a bit of a joke almost, because these companies have enormous amounts of money to invest in this space, but the gaming market is incredibly difficult to gain any kind of foothold in. It took Microsoft an enormous amount of money, an enormous amount of loss, and a long, long time to get where they are today. And then, look, in terms of the broad metrics we've had up until the last few years, Microsoft haven't been the market leader still.
No, absolutely.
Right. And they're one of the richest companies in the world. They can throw money at this. And if you look at, what Google have done in terms of Stadia, it's been really a solution for a problem that doesn't really exist right now.
Yes,
and the only saving grace for me that they would have had is okay, getting their own first party to leverage that platform and introducing really unique and interesting gaming experiences that can only be done across a cloud platform, or give me some other reason other than the fact that it's a bit more accessible than a console to invest in that space. And they've just literally wiped that all away and gone, you know what, we're not really interested in it. And I echo what Pongsol said, actually. I feel really sorry for the developers. And the Sony Santa Monica one was Shannon Studstill, who left to go and be head of their entire creative teams, basically, to be effectively the producer.
Imagine that phone call. Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a joke. It's just an absolute. And she'll get another job. I mean,
of course, if she hasn't already.
Yeah, if she hasn't already. So I think that there will be lots of developers that won't be fine out of this. There will be others, especially the bigger names, that will. And then I think people again overestimate Amazon's capability of this market. What have they shown? Right, they've got Luna coming up. Their first party efforts so far in terms of their own studios have been an absolute disaster. Right, they had Crucible. I don't even know if anybody's aware of that game. Which was kind of a battle arena type game that actually was in beta, then launched, then was such a disaster that they put it back into closed beta and then cancelled the project. And I think they've got another MMO coming up called New World. And if you look at Amazon's efforts, they're looking to again give you a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. As in, let's make games based on, MMOs or battle arena shooters when the market's moved on from that. They're gone, right? And the MMO market is what it is now, and battle arena is exactly the same.
Where do you think this leaves Luna? Where does this leave Amazon and Luna? I mean, do you think they're thinking, oh, good, one down, or do you think, they're thinking, if Google couldn't make it work?
I think, I think Amazon will give it more of a bash than Google have in terms of first party and maybe pushing the platform.
It seems strange though, because in terms of perhaps units sold or perhaps popularity in the sort of casual market, I think Stadia has probably been marketed better and more than Luna. I think more people are aware of Stadia.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think Luna is also a more infantile product than Stadia was anyway. And also, I think that the one area that you could say that Amazon have, I guess, an advantage in, or something to really push marketing on, is Twitch. Which is a big thing in of itself. So they will. I have no doubt that they will give it a go. I don't think they will succeed, at least not by a metric of introducing some competitor into the kind of the trio of those that currently exist, and getting us into, some kind of four-way battle for supremacy between Microsoft, Amazon, Sony, and Nintendo. I don't think that's going to happen. I just think these products are just, cloud platform. In many years, I think it's going to be very relevant. It's not right now, and I think it's too early to come into it now and have that be your main business focus. And I think that's why Microsoft's approach is by far the best, because they're not trying to sell you the world out of cloud gaming. They're saying, look, we want to reach more people. Here's an option for those people. It's very early now. It's going to get better. We're going to have lots of content to support it, and we'll grow it organically in that way. So yeah, it's just a bit of I mean, Google are a bit of a joke when it comes to this sort of stuff anyway.
Exactly. You know what? I was thinking that earlier, because I was thinking, actually, if there was any company that I didn't really trust in, well, I guess you kind of rent the game, even though you've paid for it wholesale. You're kind of renting it off them. And if any company that I trust the least for them to just pull the plug at any moment, it would be Google. I just wouldn't trust them to not pull the plug at any moment. And you've lost that investment, in inverted commas. Yeah,
and also just on the Stadia point, again, Phil Harrison has come into a company and kind of tanked its performance in some way or another, or tanked, stuff that it had going for it. So I really would like him to keep away from gaming in general.
Yeah, exactly. They Google obviously put a huge amount of faith in Phil Harris, and it hasn't panned out. And perhaps some commentators would say, we saw that coming, but it's interesting. Pux, what's your take on Stadia? Have you tried it? Do you think this is the beginning of the end?
I've actually got a bit of a more broad point I'd like to make, actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go
Because earlier this week, I actually read a very interesting article on GameIndustry.biz, and it kind of went into Amazon Game Studios and Stadia. And this thing's about a 20-minute read, obviously depending on how fast or slow you read. I'm not the quickest. But it's really interesting because it kind of went into the insights of both companies. And this was from a lot of, there's a lot of anonymous devs, as we just said. A lot of them have now left because they've disbanded the studios and such. Yeah. But one of the interesting takeaways I saw, and I could see this as soon as I was reading it, it made perfect sense, in that, game dev it's not just a creative process, it's also a very iterative process. Like you have one idea in some designer's head, a team will come together, prototype it together in a month or two, play it, and then it could not be any good, and you have to start from scratch potentially. That is the nature of game dev. And one of the things, one of the common quotes you'll hear in any game dev team is finding the fun. We've all probably heard this before. For a game to be good and wanted by players, it has to be fun. You have to enjoy it overall. But according to this article, at least, for both Google and Amazon, there was a lot of quotes there saying that the way that these divisions were run was very much like every other, Google or Amazon product. There was a very strict timeline. It was all data-driven. What's the latest trends? What are people playing? I can't remember the guy's name, but I think the guy who's heading the Amazon Game Studio side of things, apparently he was very awful for... this team were putting together like a League of Legends clone, for example.
He wanted I think he wanted every first-party title to be $1 billion franchise, didn't he?
That was exactly the wording, yeah.
Banged his fist on the table kind of approach.
Yeah, and it was one moment, the team are making a League of Legends clone. The next minute he's telling them to make a Call of Duty clone, overnight. That's not how game works. you stick to a plan, you have to work on it for a long time, and it costs money. And I think that's the main basis why these things are now tied up. Because I think Google have also done the same thing now, in that, they've kind of realised, we're going to open a new studio, we're going to make a load of good, big games, really sell Stadia, and then before they've even really thought about it, these these big industry names and experts have come in to basically, at the helm. They're basically saying to the top dogs, it's going to cost you this much, we might have to spend a bit more money here and there, it's iterative, blah, blah, blah. And these guys are going, you know what, this isn't worth our money. let's just launch a cloud platform instead. But then, as soon as I saw that announcement about they're closing the studio, I did. It's been mentioned here by everyone else on the panel already. But what else does Stadia have? Yeah, it's a cloud platform. I had to go on the trial. It was very good. It performed very well. But as you said, rightfully as well, like I wouldn't put my money on a Google platform because, as you say, they're quite notorious for pulling the plug at any moment.
But that was the essence of my question, and why perhaps Sony and Microsoft may be a little cautious around this, because that they do have a huge pot of cash, and they could actually potentially go out and rock the apple cart and go and make a huge acquisition of their own. Possibly Bethesda, size type acquisition for their own benefit. Whether they will or not, I don't know. Is that likely? Probably not. But they
do you mean someone like Amazon or Google buying someone out?
Yeah.
I think for the buyee, the one who's wanting to be acquired by either one of those, I think should and would see that as being a very
bad move.
Yeah. In simple terms, I think you would have to very much worry that. Well, hold on a minute. What if you pulled the plug at any moment? And if anything, Google have already shown that they're willing to just stop all cash flow into a division and just disband it altogether overnight. And I think
it's a very strange company for that, isn't it? It is a peculiar company.
And but what I find interesting, like, again, if we're quickly to talk about Luna, because I've seen a few comments in the chat about Amazon Luna, and like, for now at least, it's only in the US. So I had to Google it as the other guys on the panel were chatting just to confirm. It's still only being trialled in the US. Like the rest of the world has no access to this apart from what we see and watch on YouTube or whatever else. And I think even then, I think for me at least, already it's too late. Like, I'm not going to be jumping on to the Luna bandwagon unless they say, oh, if you've got Amazon Prime, you basically have like a Game Pass equivalent. At that point, I'll give it a go because I have Prime. I've had Prime for the last 10 odd years,
Yeah.
That would kind of be the only real thing that would bring me into the Luna ecosystem, even just to try it out. But if they say, oh, it's going to cost you this much more extra every month, which I am assuming it will do, then it's already a no-go for me before it's even started,
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. I think I'm a little bit surprised that they haven't launched it in the UK. The UK tends to be an easier market for platform holders to launch stuff in. So I'm surprised that the beta hasn't extended here for Luna, but perhaps that's on the cards or whatever. But no, I completely agree with everyone's comments, to be honest. I don't know if it's the death just yet of Stadia. Perhaps it is. Perhaps I'm being a little naive. And to be honest, I was kind of on the fence, but having listened to the arguments, I think you probably are correct thinking about it. But excellent. Where were we with the chat, Pucks?
A few comments that I've got stored here. I've only got two, actually. One of them is from Chris Hughes Sr., who says that, I know this is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but they say Google needs Xbox Game Pass on Stadia.
Well, and the reason
help it.
Well, it would, wouldn't it? But I replied saying that's an interesting point. And what I meant by that is if they could come up with their own type version of Game Pass, then obviously that would kind of assist. But like I say, where would they get the games from? They'd have to go and buy them externally. But
the other side to the coin, just to add to that, I agree that's a good thing. But then I would already argue that Microsoft has that already, and it's better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So why would you swap? Because would people pay for two? I don't think so.
I think they would if it was perhaps Xbox or Microsoft and Sony or Xbox and PlayStation. I think that would probably be a thing. And perhaps if you lived in a country where you couldn't get either of those, and I don't know, Luna or Stadia were your only options, which I can't imagine that would ever be the case, then I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting point.
I've also got another comment here from XYZ7X6 who says Stadia is definitely done. Only thing in Microsoft's way from dominating the gaming world is Luna. I think we've already kind of covered the Luna points in a way.
And PlayStation and Nintendo, I would have thought.
Yeah, because the same person also said that they wasn't aware that Luna was only in the US for now, which, I
quite like the fact we call it Lunia from now on. I like that.
What I find interesting, as I Googled Luna on the website, on the official Amazon Luna site, it even says in big bold text, Luna is only in the US. You can't access this yet,
Yeah.
Well, I found it interesting.
Oh, great advert going forward, is it?
I haven't got this comment stored, but I've just seen it in the chat as well. Again, this is from XYZ786, who says that streaming at this time will never replace console and PC, saying that having it as a complementary platform for my console is amazing. Microsoft ecosystem is great. I can carry on my games via streaming.
You know what? I mean, that's what Luke alluded to earlier, isn't it? It sits alongside the main platform of Game Pass, and I actually used it over the weekend. I was playing Sea of Thieves on my phone, and it was a thoroughly enjoyable experience. I went to bed that night thinking how much I love Sea of Thieves and that I should play it more, to be honest. And there is a bit of lag. There is no getting away from that, and I don't think that will ever be fixed, if I'm honest. Not until there's some ridiculously fast or low latency technology coming along on devices and internet providers. So I think the lag is here to stay. But if you're playing a game that you're able to put up with that, then it's a fantastic service. And like you say, all your achievements carry over, your game saves carry over. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think the first thing when I had tried xCloud for the first time back in September, I think one of the first things I tried was, I think it was when EA Play came to the service, it was Plants vs Zombies. That was the latest one, and I don't know, Escape from Neighborville. I can't remember what it's called. But, that's relatively not too fast-paced, but it's fast-paced enough that, it's a bit quite quick action. And, I had funnily enough, I had my PlayStation controller connected to my phone playing an Xbox game, which is quite an interesting combination. But for me, it was, even that level of kind of speed was perfectly fine. Like, it felt playable to me, as you say. It was enjoyable enough. Whether or not I would do it long term, I don't know. But if it was the only option I had to access next-gen games or whatever, like, it's more than doable, definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Not to jump in, guys, but just remember, one big part of the ZeniMax purchase was access to the Orion tech.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was supposed to be the next evolution of streaming with very low latency, and they proved it in front of people. So that was one of the big reasons why they wanted to acquire ZeniMax as well.
That's a very interesting. I just can't see, because what they can't do is they can't get rid of the inherent latency on your internet service provider, because that's hard baked into your connection. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that part is, if you got a bad internet connection, you're probably correct. But supposedly Orion fixed a lot of it, because that's one of the things with Stadia that everybody that's tried it has said, that out of all the streaming services, it does have the lowest latency, right? So it's got the best response, and everybody was super impressed with that. And who knows, Google might sell off that tech to Sony if Sony's going to start their own service, right? So they may wind up just selling it. But Orion supposedly proved to a lot of people, because that was one of the underlying things. I mean, they didn't come out and talk about it because it's not exciting for the average person, but Orion was one of the big things
that really went under the radar, didn't it?
Yeah,
that
did
go under the radar.
Yep.
No, fantastic. Thank you very much. That's pretty cool. Let's move on to the next one if we can. We'll stick with you if that's all right, Pong. What did you make of the Mass Effect Legendary trailer? Are you a Mass Effect fan?
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
I am. So I've already talked about this on a few podcasts now. This to me, I am so. It's EA. So again, I understand why they're doing it. They just announced that they're coming out with a new Mass Effect, which is going to basically skip over Andromeda and be done with the whole Andromeda debacle and get back to the original trilogy and continue that line of story, right? So, I know why they're doing it, but I am so extremely happy to actually have them listen for once to an outcry that's been out there for a long time. Hopefully Dead Space is next. If this is successful, then hopefully they listen to the Dead Space people and redo that trilogy as well. But as far as Mass Effect goes, it's unbelievable. Now that this news has been announced, and it's always been in the back of my mind because I've talked to some people, but it's crazy to hear how many people have never played Mass Effect, right? And there's a whole new generation, a younger generation as well, not just talking about people of our age group, but a younger generation who's never had the opportunity for a variety of reasons to experience Mass Effect and what it means in terms of gaming and why it's so beloved, right? Mass Effect itself changed the sci-fi genre for the gaming community in a way that not many games have done before or after. It actually gave you control of a Star Trek style universe. And I use Star Trek specifically because the universe itself is set up very similar to Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
But
I get that.
all of us sci-fi lovers have always wanted to be a part of a story like that, or to actually be there. And I think Mass Effect was truly one of the first games in terms of story, in terms of characters, falling in love with characters.
I liked the fact you could just walk around, you'd be flying something, you could walk around the ship and do stuff and interact with people. I'd never really experienced that before.
That interactive style had never been pulled off to the degree that it was in Mass Effect. And it gave people a chance to really experience a whole universe, unlike any other, for the first time. And people don't realize that because, again, if you haven't played Mass Effect, and we're talking about 2021 here, and you haven't played Mass Effect, or you're just a younger person who's never heard of Mass Effect before, to go back and to try to play those right now, even if you've got like a Series X, you're going to probably be turned off because it's dated, right? It truly is. And especially Mass Effect 1. And I think even some people who tried Mass Effect 1 back in the day and couldn't get into it, simply because of the controls, I think they missed out on a big opportunity there. So for this to launch now, I think it's going to reintroduce not only the story to us and all of our favorites, even if we've played them multiple times, now we get to experience them basically in the high settings. They're not going back and they're not upgrading it to, Unreal 4. They're still using Unreal 3, which is fine. I understand the cost. I mean, EA probably put a number on this of what they were going to spend to do this. But to upgrade it to, let's say, even the high PC specs, that the PC community was able to enjoy with this game, to be able to go back and re-experience that with updated controls in Mass Effect 1, using the UI from Mass Effect 2 to create that synergy across all three. This is going to be a special experience for us veterans of Mass Effect who, again, maybe we've even played it multiple times, but to go back and be able to experience it in the best form possible is a joy. And I can't wait. This is a day one for me and for all the new people that they're going to bring into this universe, because the story itself and the characters are timeless. I don't care who you are. If you love video games, you want to go back and play these games, there is something about that, especially 1 and 2, and yes, 3 had its issues, but thankfully they're going to go with the redone ending that they actually listened to the community on way back in the day and put that in there, along with all the DLC, except for a couple.
I think there's only. Do you know what one of the? I think there's only one that's missing. Do you know why it's missing? The files, the files got corrupted.
Yes,
that's why it never came to PS3. The files got corrupted. I can't believe that.
but I'm so excited for everybody to go, for everybody to be able to go back and experience this if they want to. I really think it's a great thing, and I simply can't wait.
No, it's excellent, and I completely agree, and I have that same nostalgia that you do. Luke, are you big on Mass Effect?
Yeah, huge fan.
Excellent.
I love the original trilogy, bar the ending stuff, which I won't go into here, but bar issues with that, is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I have incredibly fond memories of all of the games, actually, even Mass Effect 3, which is probably up until the ending point, probably the best game in the series, for me anyway. So Andromeda less so. That was a real disaster, actually, for various reasons. And I think it's just, I mean, as Pong said, like, people have been calling for this for so long, and it just makes sense to do it now, given that we've got kind of sufficient time away from Andromeda to not be that angry about it anymore. Plus, given that they're making a new game, it's the right time to introduce this, to bring it to more people, which is an important point. But I think more than anything, it's not about bringing it to new people. It's actually trying to galvanize the fan base of people again, and get some goodwill towards that series after Andromeda.
Absolutely.
So I think it's going to be really, really fun to revisit it. The kind of footage they've released of the first game looks really nice. It's not a full-on remake, but it's quite a significant transformation.
No, the high-res textures and stuff, they all look pretty good, don't they?
Yeah, they look nice. And I think they said that the work there's less work that's gone into Mass Effect 2 and 3 because they are more modernized than the first one was, for sure. But that's not to say they won't have, significant enhancements as well. So I'm excited about it, and it's kind of I do have, I think like you said, those memories of being on the Normandy and just walking about and having conversations, and it felt, even though it was, you look back and it's not like a huge, massive scale game. There's not like, in any of the games, there's places you can visit for sure, and planets, etc. But they're all hub worlds. They're not like huge, expansive environments. But I remember playing it, and it just felt so vast at the time. It felt like you were really in this kind of very large galaxy.
It was a very bustly sort of,
it felt very alive. Very alive, and
exactly.
it felt like because it did. The actions you take really did influence a lot of the world you were in, and you saw that, and it was very good. It was kind of BioWare at their peak, really.
Yeah, it was BioWare at their peak, and they created such a universe. They did such a great job. Like you said, it wasn't necessarily big from a game scope as far as what you actually got to play, but they develop the history so well that it makes you feel like it. Like every single species that you came across was fully fleshed out, and you felt that, and that's what it did. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No. And you get their personalities come through as well, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, and you felt that kind of that bustle, like when you go into the Citadel and stuff like that. Like it felt like a real place, and all of the areas in that game, I think, because they were very kind of meticulously crafted, and they weren't exactly huge. And this applies to game environments in general that are like this. They're very memorable, right? Like even when you have like the Spencer Mansion in the first Resident Evil, it's such a memorable place because it's not huge, but it's so well crafted. And I felt like everywhere in Mass Effect, across all of the games, was like that. They just felt, really special, and they felt alive. And I really hope that BioWare going forward can try and capture some of that magic again, because they really haven't the last few years. But if they can even capture a part of that, I suspect the next Mass Effect game will be very good.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like you say, they've got the pedigree there. They've got the story and the character arcs, and it's there for the doing, really, isn't it? And well, we have been lacking that kind of, like you say, that space, that in-depth, detailed space kind of journey like that. Like you say, on the Normandy, it brings back so many good memories when I think of that. Pux, Mass Effect, is that on your radar?
I might disappoint a load of people here.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, I did play and finish Mass Effect 1 and 2. I at the time I enjoyed them. I went through them okay, but I just wasn't that into them, if that makes sense. I kind of played them at the time because they were the new big thing to play, and I enjoyed it enough to finish it.
What, I think... Flap, can we mute him?
We can do better than that.
Just outright kick me from the panel. I enjoyed it enough. I think, especially one of the things that was new at the time, the dynamic kind of dialogue systems that they had and the different characters and the conversation things that Luke was saying. Like, I agree that those systems at the time were quite revolutionary. They were pretty new to have all those different kind of arcing dialogue trees that you could go down in the manner that it was done. If I remember rightly, I believe actually the dialogue wheel system of Mass Effect was actually patented. Believe it or not, I
don't remember that.
I believe that's a thing. Yeah. But when news of number 3 came out back in the day, and I remember watching those trailers and thinking, you know what, this looks quite cool. But then I read the reviews for it, and you guys have just said it now about how, the controversial ending and all the rest of it. And I think at the time I saw all this news, and I kind of thought, you know what, I'm not that fussed.
So do you think the bad press kind of put you off a little bit?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that's the exclusive reason, because I don't tend to follow reviews to the T, so to speak. But I wasn't a massive fan of it. I mean, I was a fan enough to play and enjoy all of the first and second one, but I wasn't so big into it that I was super fussed about playing the last one. Okay. And when I saw the news of Andromeda, and obviously that, forgive me if this is wrong, but it appeared to have completely tanked. At that point, I kind of thought, I enjoyed it, but I'm not too fussed about jumping back in. But
so given all of that, where do you sit on the new sort of this remaster?
Well, I've just seen people in the chat saying about how, people have gone back to it back to the original ones now, and it wasn't how they remembered it, rose-tinted glasses and all that, but they said they're quite looking forward to jumping into it. So I will probably jump in, if I'm perfectly honest. I'd like to think maybe giving a fresh coat of paint and a few little tweaks here and there, which I believe is being done. Maybe it will convert me again. But it's been over 10 years since I last played it, so I might have well changed my tune by now. It's just been so long. I'm kind of basing this on my opinions that I kind of remember from back then, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I'll change my tune once I play them. I will give them a go, to answer your question. But I'm not... For me, it's not like rush to the storm, buy it day one.
I was going to say, bearing in mind you're going to have to pay for it, because I'm very much doubt it's going to be on EA Play. So are you prepared to pay for them?
I would be, but not immediately. I would probably wait for the reviews to come out, see what people say about it, if anything. I'll probably watch some clips of it, enough not to spoil it for me, but just to give me an idea. And if I don't like the look of it, I'll probably pass it. But if a load of people keep telling me, oh my god, you need to sort your life out and play this game and like
I think
it, then
they've already done that, to be honest.
well, yeah. To be fair, as I'm talking, I kind of don't look at the chat when I'm talking, so I'm going back and just seeing all sorts of emojis and everything.
I'll let you catch up with that.
I'll give it a go. Yeah, is my answer.
Okay.
But I'm not like the biggest fan to start with.
Well, talking of the chat, what's the chat has been quite vocal. What's the chat been up to? Pucks?
To be honest, I haven't got a lot of things saved here. I've got one here from Fun Speculation who says, Mass Effect, I think if you miss the first one, people will be hesitant to dive into the franchise. Would you believe that's true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Another comment here from XYZ786 who says, keep in mind that the team that made Mass Effect Andromeda is the same that is going to remaster these games. And do you think that will mean anything to the remaster quality?
Gaming definitely came back with that. Doing a remaster is easier than creating a new game story. It'll be hard for them to screw it up, and I completely agree with that, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought I saw some comments there as well. I mean, you're remastering what is already like a complete story. The mechanics are there. You've just got to give it a fresh coat of paint. So and a few tweaks here and there. But that's all the comments I really have so far. And I'm just catching up on people telling me to sort my life out in the chats.
Fair enough. Well, I've only got a couple of sort of brief topics left, and we'll kind of cover them quite briefly, if that's okay. We'll come to you first, Pong. Sony acquiring a new studio. Apparently, they're flexing their wallet. Do you think that's likely to happen? Is that going to concern Microsoft? Do you think? Who do you think could be in the running? Any ideas?
No, I definitely think it's going to happen. I mean, it's obvious. The consolidation is continuing. We just saw the purchase of Gearbox by Embracer Group. This kind of stuff is going to continue for the next probably 3 years or so, I imagine. People are always worried about it. I'm not so worried about it because it just gives more opportunity for smaller devs to come up. Is the way I look at it. It's just creating more room. I don't think we're ever going to see a monopoly situation from anybody. So I definitely believe that Sony is definitely going to go out there. I think Blue Point obviously makes the most sense now. I don't think we're going to see any huge acquisitions from Sony. I could be surprised. Obviously, their financial statements definitely look good, but I think they've got their hands in so many other businesses. I don't think they're going to throw all their eggs in that basket again. So I think they're going to be much more cautious when it comes to purchases. I think they're really trying to ramp up that anime division, which it looks like they're going to try to secure a real foothold there. And I think that's an extremely smart move.
I was about to say that makes absolute sense.
Yes. And anime is becoming more and more popular, which for an old guy like me, an old anime head, is surprising and beautiful at the same time.
My daughter's got right into anime recently. There's a big surge, isn't there?
Yes, there is. There's a huge surge. So I think for them, they've got their focus in a lot of different spots right now. Obviously, with the movie business where it's at right now is going to hurt them a little bit too. So I think that's going to make them hold back. But I think Blue Point up front, if you're asking about a specific a studio to be acquired, I think Blue Point makes way too much sense for them. It'd be interesting to see if they have them continue to go back and just remake games for them, from their old catalog, or if they do a purchase, if they let them beef up their staff and go out and try to, do something new on their own. I think the talent level is there. So I think that fit, is already a match made in heaven. They already know each other. It's a lot like what Microsoft does with a lot of their acquisitions. It's people they've worked with closely. So I definitely think it's on the docket, and there'll definitely be a purchase, maybe 2, maybe 3 for Sony. I just don't think we're going to see any huge ZeniMax style purchases from them in the future here.
No, I agree, and I think the only other people that we may see that from is probably Microsoft again. It has been rumored, and we did kind of cover that on last week's show, but it's still not fact at this point. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Luke, Bloober, apparently Bloober are working on a next project already. I'm guessing it's not any DLC for Medium. Just interesting because there's been a few rumors sort of asking the question whether it's going to be Microsoft exclusive or whether they might get sort of swallowed up and snapped up by Microsoft. Any ideas? Observer 2? That was quite good, wasn't it?
It's all right. Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know what they'll make going forward. Maybe another Medium game. Who knows?
I wouldn't have thought they'd have done one straight off the bat, though.
No, probably maybe not. But it's certainly been a success for them, so it's probably something they'll have a look at. They tend to. I mean, the only game they've done a sequel to has been Layers of Fear, right? So
yes,
they tend to like to be quite active in new IP, and I think that's really good. And I think after the Medium, especially, they've found an area that they can really make work, and that generally has a good reception. And Bloober games always tend to have pretty good receptions, like in terms of critically and commercially. Like
they do,
always,
don't they?
And the Medium, they said, didn't they, that they've already made their money back on the Medium, notwithstanding the fact it went into Game Pass as well. So, and of course, they'll have made money just from that. But it'd be interesting. I don't know whether it will be exclusive or not. I think Microsoft probably want to work with them again. Because
they seem to have quite a close relationship, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, you could definitely see it being, even if it's not exclusive, being a Game Pass game, kind of day and date. And it might make sense for them to acquire a studio like Bloober. They are. There aren't many dedicated kind of horror developers out there anymore. It's a good niche to have in your portfolio. There are lots of rumors that Sony are looking at making, a horror game as well. So, it kind of ties in with that to have some competition, which is always good. And I think it could be interesting for them. So, as long as they make a game that's as good as the Medium, I'll be quite happy because that was good.
There's rumours that the next Silent Hill may get announced this year. Would be interesting to see if Sony try and nab that.
I'm praying that it will, because it's been far too long without a Silent Hill game.
Yeah, it's been far too long. I completely agree. Puxley, and probably not. It's not really much of a story. It sounds good and probably good press for Microsoft, but actually, Xbox outsold PlayStation 5 in the UK in the month of January. Now, like I say, that sounds brilliant, but I'm guessing there's probably lots of extraneous circumstances. Probably we can't get hold of PS5s in the UK, like we can't, like you can't anywhere. But and obviously Xbox is a particularly strong market in the UK anyway, so perhaps it's not quite as hugely newsworthy as lots of people have been covering. But it's still a good sign, isn't it? Good to see.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, it's a bit hard to tell because I can't speak about anywhere else in the world. But I know here in the UK, I mean, bot scalping is ridiculous. Is a ridiculous market right now, and again, especially for PS5. So whether or not people aren't getting PS5s, one, because you just can't get them because of lack of stock anyway, and two, because people are finally now refusing to spend ridiculous money on one. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry, I'm not quite sure what the game is there, but as you say, at face value at least, it's a very healthy market for Xbox. I know we talk about things like Game Pass all the time. I'd like to think that some of the Microsoft marketing and, parents or otherwise, or people not knowing which system to go for, might have maybe gone, that Game Pass looks like good value. And maybe hope maybe these people are looking into that ecosystem and maybe even trying it out on PC. And maybe they're finding out, actually, maybe I should get an Xbox. And maybe that's what it is. But as you say, overall, it's good news for Xbox at this point. But I'd be interested to see what the taglines will be in, say, 6 to 8 months time, once hopefully these things start to come back into regular stock, and then see how the market plays at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a huge. I mean, please, if we praise Microsoft, don't think that that's automatically putting PlayStation down or whatever. It's going to be a huge year for Xbox this year. And like Luke alluded to earlier, they're not the market leader. PlayStation are the market leader. And I think this is a huge year for Microsoft to actually perhaps claw back some of the glory, the Xbox 360 days when their brand was in a much better place in people's in the gaming kind of psyche, as it were, and the confidence in their product and the games and the lineup and everything they've got. I think it's going to be a fantastic year.
To be honest, I think even now, though, I mean, I kind of felt that Series S or X, whatever, I kind of feel like this is almost an ode to the 360 era. I feel like Microsoft have really got that clench on what they should be doing again, if you get what I mean.
Absolutely.
I don't necessarily think that the PS5 will be like the PS3, not to say that. No. But I can't really explain it. It's just like an instinct intuition thing, but I can't help but feel that PS5 may not be as big and as popular as I think a lot of people reckon it will do. But then again, it's very early days. I'm basing this just on news and things that I've read over the last 4 to 5 months. But
I think it's because you're seeing the commitment, Puxley, because I have the exact same feeling.
Yeah, that's pretty good point.
I like you switched to PS4 last gen because, until 2017, because, Microsoft wasn't speaking what I wanted to hear, right? That, absolutely. We don't have to relitigate all that. But but I think now, I think all of us who experienced the 360 days are seeing Microsoft for the first time go all in on something. And now they have, even because we forget 360 by default had so many exclusives that it felt like they had first party studios when they really didn't. Yeah, it's funny, but now we see that commitment, that excitement level once again. And on top of it, now they have all these acquisitions that they're making. We know they have the studio and the content. It's just a matter of time will be here for us. So I think that's where that feeling comes from.
Yeah, and it is that sort of pent up excitement for what could be and hopefully what will be.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah,
but based on the proven track record of the 360 era and certainly not the Xbox One era.
No, definitely.
Excellent. Well, that kind of wraps up all of our topics for today. Have we got anything last comments in the chat, Pux?
Nothing in particular that I've spotted. Stubbs Gaming's joined us. He's apologised for being late. Well, obviously, that's no worries at all.
Well, to be honest,
don't have to be here, but it's glad that you are.
I think he's off soon to go and interview Fun Speculation. So let's get this show wrapped up, and we can all go over there. That's cool. I'm quite looking forward to listening to that, actually. So no, fantastic. Anything else, just chat wise, quickly?
No, I've got nothing else to add.
Excellent. Cool. Okay, well, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this. And like I say, it's been a bit of a dry news week, but I actually quite like going over these sort of smaller news topics. I think that's probably something we might do going forwards, to be honest, unless there's a huge acquisition made somewhere in the gaming sphere. But Pong Sol, thank you for being here. I really enjoyed your input. I say this to pretty much everyone, but please expect your next invite in the post. No, really enjoyed having you on the show, my friend.
Man, it's a great time. Again, it's always strange to be here versus the chat, but now that 2021, it's been crazy, but to be here finally and talking with you guys, because I just love you guys so much and what you've done with this channel is truly an exceptional experience, and I loved it. I love the conversations, and I love how you guys handle things, and obviously being here with Luke as well. Just a great experience for me. I appreciate the compliments, and send me an invite and we will definitely make it happen. I'd love to come back anytime. So everybody out there, chat, you guys are awesome as always. Again, one of the reasons why I love this show so much was the chat. That's where I started, and absolutely. I love it. Everybody here is so positive, and it just great dialogue back and forth, and that itself is phenomenal. So you can find me Pong Sol everywhere, Xbox, Twitter. I am now permanently a panel member on Xbox Ultimate with Mav, Fun Speculation,
Fantastic.
His wife Caitlin,
Brilliant.
and Assassin Lupa and 3-Bit. And you can find us Friday nights. We start at 9 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, I don't have the UK times translated all the time yet. I'm still getting used to that.
Eastern is 5 hours ahead, so if that's
5
9
hours ahead. So very early morning for
to 2 a.m. That'll be 2 a.m.
And then also I'm also on the panel and on the Shop podcast on Saturday nights. And that starts at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Times on Saturday night. So once again, early morning for all of you. And that's with PTK Blam, Fuzzy Belvedere, Centurion, and Stagorilla. Obviously, you guys can catch that, on replay. It is an amazing show. He's been doing it for 5 years. PTK has, so it's well put together, and we have a great time there as well. And then who knows where else you'll see me. So it's been a crazy tour so far, and you never know where I'll pop up, but I always post it on my Twitter. So thank you all again. From the bottom of my heart. It means everything to me. I don't take this stuff for granted. The invite is special to me, so I appreciate it.
No worries, my friend. And like I say, you're always in the chat, and it's always great to see you there. And you're in every chat I ever see, so it's fantastic. Luke, thank you very much for being here again, my friend. Again, I like the fact that you are cross-platform, and I think someone mentioned earlier about stick to the topic and don't bash each side. We try not to. We don't mind bashing either side really if they kind of deserve it for whatever reason. But there is harmony to be found in the middle. And at the end of the day, we're critiques, and I love what you bring to the show, and your knowledge and the games that you play. You bring things to my attention that I've never even heard of, to be honest. So thank you for being here. That's true.
No, yeah, you're very welcome. I always love being here, and even when there isn't big news that's happened, right? The panel here always talk through topics and make them really interesting. Even though they might not be the huge kind of Bethesda level acquisition stuff that we've come to expect nowadays. It's I try to be, I think, as neutral as possible. And I think sometimes, people forget that, the Xbox, especially to me, is probably it's my favorite console of all time, and I love it. But equally, I love kind of every other platform, and I'm just a gamer, right?
Exactly.
And I'm just someone who enjoys games, but I can be really critical of anything if you give me the chance. So I kind of have to be quite analytical in what I do as a job, and it kind of transpires through to other stuff as well. So, but yeah, great to be here. Great to speak with Pongsol as well, who's awesome today. Really appreciate him being on the panel. He's just awesome dude. If you want to follow me, I'm at LukeSteele90 on Twitter, and that's it.
Thank you very much. Well, you'll be on again very soon, one of our kind of semi-regulars. So Puxley, good show. I enjoyed it. We've got some good numbers. I think
I did as well.
33, 34 people listening. Always great to have the chat involved, because you do throw us curveballs, you do make us think, you do challenge us, and that's what it's all about.
Oh, 100%. I know before we went live, I was a little bit concerned whether or not our topics might have been a bit dry, but I think, as Luke said, I think somehow we've managed to have fun talking about them. We've gone into all sorts of different kind of avenues here and there, and as you say, we've had just under or just over 30 people listening to us, so we can't be that boring to listen to. I'd like to think we've made it exciting enough. Again, I always love listening and having Luke on the show. And again, it's the second time I've had been speaking to Mr. Pongsol. We spoke together first on the Indie Games podcast 2 weeks ago. And I know we've mentioned this before, but it's just something about when we have an American guest on the panel. You guys just bring energy and fire, which I don't think we just do. We don't do it very well.
No, you guys do. You absolutely do. We just said it's just a different style. That's all, Puxley.
Maybe that's why I'm just not seeing it, because we're doing it, I guess. But
yeah, exactly.
But I love the fire and energy that you guys bring as well, and everyone. So, but no, I've really enjoyed tonight's show. I think it's been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Completely agree. And we love doing these shows, and it's always fantastic. Just a quick note. Thank you for everyone listening. If you do please consider like, share, subscribe, all of the normal stuff. We aren't doing a show next week, I'm afraid. It's Valentine's. So we are taking the day off, if that's okay. I am actually going to do a virtual concert. We're going to see the brand new Heavies live online. So it's a virtual concert. But we will be back even stronger the week after. And I apologize if anyone's getting frustrated watching me play Tetris. It's not always the easiest game when it starts piling down very fast, but I've even been getting frustrated watching it myself, in all honesty. But thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Catch up with us soon. Like I say, we're not around next week, but we are the week after. Hopefully there'll be some big news to talk about. Thank you very much. It's been fantastic. Let me find the outro. There it is. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.